Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of absolute precision.
Right. Yeah. Like engineering almost.
Exactly. Like you break your arm, you go to the hospital, and the x-ray shows that jagged white line. The doctor just points at the screen and says, well, there it is. There's
Mhm.
the problem. You put a cast on it, you heal, and you move on.
Because it's highly visible. And I mean, more importantly, it's highly categorized. We really rely on that visibility to feel a sense of control over our own
Yeah,
bodies.
control over the pain. But then, you step away from the orthopedics department and into the world of human grief or psychological trauma, and suddenly that x-ray machine is completely useless.
Yeah.
You're suddenly looking at a diagnostic landscape that is entirely invisible.
Which is incredibly frustrating for both the person suffering and the people trying to treat them. There is no clean, illuminated image to show, where a traumatic memory lives,
Right.
or how a profound loss is mutating inside someone's nervous system.
And that invisible mutation is exactly what we are exploring today. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today we have our hands on an incredibly fascinating source document.
It really is.
Yeah, it's this excerpt from a highly symbolic, surrealist narrative. It's titled Part 25, Love Story T&E, Grief and Encounter. It basically follows a woman named Elisa exactly 1 year after she lost her partner, Toivo, to cancer.
But we aren't just going to read you a story today.
Right. No, we are going to use this text as a case study to answer a really difficult question for you all. When clinical medicine completely fails to heal profound grief, why does the human mind resort to absolute visceral horror to process it?
It's a phenomenal question because this narrative, it really doesn't pull any punches. It uses extreme surrealism and body horror, but not for cheap shock value.
Right, it has a purpose.
Yeah, it uses it to accurately depict the mechanics of a grieving mind. It visualizes the invisible.
I want to jump right into how jarring that visualization is, actually,
Yeah.
because the whiplash in the opening of this text is intense.
Oh, it really is.
So imagine a perfectly serene memory of a loved one. Elisa and Toivor are at this fell cabin. The source text gives us these incredibly peaceful specifics. The sun's rays are hitting the snow, water drops falling like pearls from the roof.
Such a vivid picture.
Yeah, and Toivo is out in a wooden boat, fishing in a pond.
It paints this idyllic, almost untouchable anchor point in her memory, like a moment of pure safety.
Exactly. He catches this beautiful reddish 3-kilo salmon. He scuns it, bleeds it, and there's this warm detail where the sun is heating the sweat on his face. He flashes this huge smile at Elisa and promises her glow-fried salmon for dinner.
It's a memory you would want to live in forever.
But then the brain hijacks it. Elisa gets a sudden headache, her pupils dilate. In an instant, the sky just turns pitch black. The pond Toivo is fishing and turns into what the text describes as a black eye, and his boat starts sinking
The safety is just revoked instantly.
and replaced by a literal monster. A creature rises out of this black eye pond. It's described as a whale-sized pike or a bog dog.
Dogga, yeah.
It has 5 rotting eyes on each side of its face and a saber-spiked maw. And riding this giant rotting fish is a white creature with gills, white eyeballs, and a decaying face.
It's just so grotesque.
It really is. This rider screams in a falsetto from hell and wields a spear made of human thigh bones. Elisa tries to swim out to save Toivo, but she's dragged underwater by these freezing icy bubbles, and she feels the saber-like teeth of this slimy pike piercing her.
It is an incredibly dense, overwhelming sensory experience.
I have to be honest here, though, and maybe push back a little on the text.
Yeah.
When I first read about the, falsetto screaming fish rider with a bone spear, it felt a bit absurd to me.
Like over the top.
Yeah, almost like a B-movie monster.
Yeah.
Does this actually accurately reflect the psychology of trauma, or is the author just throwing in everything they can think of for shock value?
I mean, it sounds absurd on the surface, absolutely, but you have to map those grotesque details onto the specific reality of what killed her partner.
Okay, right.
We learn later that Toivo died of cancer. Think about the mechanics of that disease. It is an illness of physical decay and consumption. So the rotting imagery of the fish, the 5 decaying eyes, the body falling apart, these aren't just random fantasy tropes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they are the mind's attempt to give a literal shape to terminal illness.
Okay, so she's literally visualizing the disease that took him. What about the spear made of human thigh bones?
That is arguably the most poignant detail in the whole scene. Cancer is a disease where your own cells mutate and destroy you, right?
Yeah.
It is the weaponization of the human body against itself. So, a spear made of human bones is the perfect metaphor for a disease that turns your own anatomy into the weapon that kills you.
That is so dark, but it makes so much sense.
Right. The monster dragging Elisa under the freezing water isn't just a generic symbol of sadness. It represents the very specific, lingering trauma of watching someone you love be consumed from the inside out. It pulls the survivor under the ice with them.
It's like a cinematic jump scare, but applied to real life. It mirrors the exact mechanics of a panic attack or a PTSD flashback.
Yeah.
The brain just drops this horror right into the middle of a perfectly happy memory.
Exactly.
And right as she is being pierced by these teeth in her mind, the narrative violently snaps us out of her subconscious.
Yeah, we literally hear the snapping sound of fingers. Snap, snap. Elisa, wake up.
Yes, she wakes up from deep hypnosis in a doctor's armchair. This is Dr. Peter. He's shining a penlight in her eyes. It's such a jarring contrast to go from a bone spear in a freezing pond to a sterile, brightly lit doctor's office.
A completely different world.
Totally. Dr. Peter asks what she saw. She explains the nightmare always snatches Toivo away, and Dr. Peter's reaction is incredibly dry. He just notes, interesting, again a beast.
Yeah, very clinical.
And we get a glimpse into his previous notes where he recalls a past session. In that one, Elisa saw Toivo turn into a werewolf and start eating himself.
Which again reinforces that metaphor of cancer, the body consuming its own tissue. But notice how Dr. Peter reacts to it.
Right, he tells her, Elisa, we are at the point of a breakthrough in this fear of yours. But he is dead wrong.
So wrong.
Because instantly, right there in the dim office, she hallucinates again. Standing behind Dr. Peter is a tall man in a black tuxedo. His face is distorted in multiple directions, and on his chest, he is wearing a black rose.
So creepy.
Elisa screams, the vision vanishes, and Dr. Peter just hands her a glass of water and a tranquilizer.
It is the ultimate failure of the clinical gaze.
How so? Like, break that down for me.
Because the medical world, represented here by Dr. Peter, the hypnosis, the penlight, the tranquilizers, it's attempting to logically treat her fear. It wants to categorize her trauma like an X-ray.
Right, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. It wants to isolate the symptom, call it a breakthrough, and medicate it away. But grief of this magnitude defies clinical logic. You cannot tranquilize a shattered reality.
That brings up a really interesting contradiction in the text, actually, because right after this horrific tuxedo hallucination, Elisa's mind pivots entirely.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
She suddenly remembers Toivo's last words before he died, and this memory completely brightens the hospital room. She visualizes this majestic fjord with huge tooth peaks, snow melting into streams, cool mountain wind.
Beautiful imagery.
It is. And Toivo looks into her deep green eyes and says, I see life and love from your face and your eyes. It's an incredibly beautiful, grounded moment. But I have to ask, why is her brain ping-ponging like this? Why place this gorgeous mountain fjord memory right next to a distorted tuxedo man and a self-eating werewolf?
Well, it's highlighting the duality of what she's experiencing right now. The beautiful fjord memory is the core truth of their relationship. You know, the love, the connection, the life they shared.
Right.
But the tuxedo man represents the inescapable reality of his death. I mean, think about it. A tuxedo is formal wear. A black rose is a universal symbol of death, despair, and finality.
So it's like a funeral.
Exactly. He represents a formalized, permanent state of mourning. By placing them side by side, the narrative shows us that Dr. Peter is completely out of his depth.
Yeah, he has no idea what's really happening.
He thinks they are making progress, but the appearance of the tuxedo man proves that the clinical setting cannot contain or cure her trauma. The medicine is failing.
And when the medicine fails, the boundaries between the internal subconscious and the external reality completely collapse.
Yeah, they shatter.
The monsters aren't just in her memories anymore. They actually start bleeding into her everyday life. We see this escalation the moment she leaves the hospital.
The transition from the clinical space back into the real world is where the psychological horror really ramps up.
So she's walking home in the cool autumn drizzle. She gets to her old apartment building and steps into this rusty cage elevator with flickering lights.
Such a moody setting.
And on the cold floor of the elevator, she finds two highly symbolic items, a blue envelope and a golden key. The second she touches that golden key, she has a massive vision. She sees a white horse riding in a bright cloud, and the rider is shining like the sun, wearing many crowns and holding a staff.
Which feels very surreal, almost like a fairy tale motif interrupting a gritty urban setting.
It does. But what makes this terrifying rather than magical is what happens next. She startles and realizes her neighbor, this old lady, is standing there waiting for the elevator.
Yeah.
Elisa lets her in, and the neighbor says, completely unprompted, "Blessings, Elisa, the White Riders are coming."
It gives me chills. This is the turning point of the entire narrative. Up until now, Dr. Peter could argue that these were just isolated internal hallucinations.
Just in her head.
But the moment an external character validates the vision, the psychological containment breaches, the text is telling us that this spiritual, emotional battle is now manifesting in the physical world.
And her apartment proves it. She's desperate for a safe haven, but her building is literally rotting. The wallpaper is peeling off the walls. Cockroaches are scurrying across the floor. Gets to apartment number 7, unlocks it, goes inside, and padlocks the latch. She hears her neighbors screaming and howling through the walls, which the text notes happens every single night.
It's a brilliant depiction of urban decay mirroring her internal decay.
She tries to distract herself. She falls asleep on the sofa with the TV on, but she jolts awake to static. She feels this chilling, evil presence in the room. Suddenly, the TV changes to an emergency news broadcast warning people to lock their doors because a huge black storm wall is hitting the city.
A literal storm of grief.
Yes, and Elisa looks out the window and sees these black flashing clouds forming into the literal shapes of skulls.
So the fear is escalating from a memory of a pond to an apocalyptic environmental threat.
And it invades her own identity. A flash of lightning hits, and for a split second, Elisa sees her own reflection in the window. But it's not her. She has black eyes, her mouth is wide open, and cockroaches are bursting out of her screaming mouth.
Oh my God.
She runs to a real mirror, sweating cold sweat, and sees she looks normal. But as she breathes a sigh of relief, she looks into the dark corner by her grandfather clock and sees a black hooded figure hissing at her, with moist antennae twitching under the hood.
It's a complete invasion of her sanctuary. Nowhere is safe.
I was thinking about this sequence, the peeling wallpaper, the cockroaches bursting from her mouth, the haunted reflection. It reminds me of that irrational paranoia you get when you're alone in a house at 3 a.m.
Oh, totally.
Like the heater kicks on, the floorboards creak,
Yeah.
and suddenly you are convinced there is a threat in the house. Your brain takes a space you know is safe and weaponizes it against you. Now multiply that by 1,000.
Yeah, it's unbearable.
That feels like the perfect analogy for how profound depression and grief work. They make you feel like your own mind is infested. You can't even trust your own reflection.
That is precisely the psychological mechanism the author is visualizing here. When trauma is left unprocessed, when it is just tranquilized and ignored, it doesn't go away, it mutates.
Right.
It started as a contained memory of a fish in a pond. But because she tried to isolate herself, because she put a padlock on her door, the fear mutated into an apocalyptic skull storm and an insectoid invasion of her living room.
It's tracking her down.
Exactly. The narrative is forcing Elisa's hand. She realizes that she cannot passively hide from this anymore. The horror is inside the house.
Which means she has to actively confront it. The passive suffering has to end. Elisa says, "Now it was enough, I'm going out."
Good for her.
But I find her choice of armor really fascinating here. She doesn't grab a kitchen knife or a baseball bat. She puts on a black hoodie with a white cross on it. She takes her grandpa's old Bible.
Yeah, very specific tools.
She grabs the blue envelope and the golden key she found in the elevator, puts them inside the Bible, and she climbs down the iron fire escape ladders from her balcony into the wet, dark, rotting backyard park.
She is making a conscious choice to descend into the darkness. She is shifting from being a victim of her trauma to an active combatant in a spiritual and psychological war.
And the park is a war zone. She's walking through rotting leaves in the rain, and suddenly she physically feels fear states throbbing in her body. The text is very specific. It's not just an emotion she's having, it's a physical assault being projected onto her.
We have to look at the somatic psychology here.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, trauma isn't just a thought process. It is stored in the nervous system. The body remembers the terror, and the sympathetic nervous system can physically trigger states of panic, elevated heart rate, and visceral dread without any logical reason.
Right, like your body reacting before your brain even knows why.
Exactly. The text is externalizing that somatic response.
And it gives that response a terrifying shape.
Yeah.
She sees what's causing the physical panic.
Yeah.
There's a pulsating red light deep in the forest. It's coming from these bony, hairy creatures that have a red aura around them.
Like demons.
Yeah, when they spot her, they scamper like ants up into this massive, grotesque tree. And the tree itself looks like a giant hairy hand. It is pulsating with this red, pulse-like light that is literally radiating a fear state-causing pulse. She actually hears a disembodied voice say, "The grip of fear."
The imagery is dense, but it's incredibly deliberate. The hairy hand, the red pulse, it's a literal physical manifestation of the psychological grip of terror that has been squeezing her for a year.
So how do you fight a giant hairy hand that radiates panic? As we said, she didn't bring a physical weapon.
No, she didn't.
She holds out her grandpa's Bible, and huge blue flames shoot out of the book directly at the creatures. A lightning bolt strikes the tree, completely shattering it and exploding all those hairy creatures into a black blood mush.
Just obliterated.
Yeah. The Bible then glows with a golden light, and she sees text illuminated on the page that reads, "Perfect love casts out all fear."
It's an overwhelmingly spectacular resolution to the battle.
It is, but I really want to break down the mechanics of this victory for you all. We are analyzing this impartially as a piece of literature, exploring how the mind processes grief. So why a glowing Bible and blue flames? Why does the narrative use this specific religious mechanism to destroy the monsters instead of a psychological breakthrough like Dr. Peter was trying to achieve?
It comes down to the physics of emotional warfare. As we established, the tree and the creatures are not flesh and blood. They are literal manifestations of emotion. They are the paralyzing grip of trauma. You cannot fight an abstract emotional state with a physical weapon, and as we saw in the doctor's office, clinical logic and tranquilizers completely fail to neutralize the threat.
You can't outthink a panic attack.
Exactly. Therefore, a manifestation of pure fear can only be defeated by a counter-emotion of equal or greater power. The text gives us its central thesis explicitly on the glowing page. Perfect love casts out all fear.
Wow.
In the context of this narrative, the Bible and the cross aren't just religious props or dogma. They are symbolic conduits for love. They channel the only emotional force strong enough to shatter the paralysis of her trauma. It's about the sheer mechanics of the human heart overcoming absolute terror.
By utilizing the memory of love to destroy the manifestation of fear. That makes profound sense. And when she destroys the physical manifestation of her fear, turning it to mush, the psychological blockade is broken. The path is finally clear.
Yeah, she can finally move forward.
She leaves the dark park and arrives at this huge castle-like church. She pushes the heavy doors open.
She has survived the descent, and now we enter the final stage of the journey, the transcendence.
There's a sudden flash of lightning, and for a split second, the dark church is illuminated. She sees it is full of people dressed in white. But when the flash ends, they're gone. It's completely quiet except for the thunder outside.
So atmospheric.
She stands there in the quiet, and she finally opens the blue envelope she found back in that dirty, flickering elevator. The paper inside reads, "Welcome to the Pearl Gate of Life, Elisa."
It was an invitation she had been carrying through the entire nightmare.
Right, and the golden key she's holding suddenly activates. It brightens the entire room. Standing in front of her is a man in glowing white clothes with his back turned. He turns around, and it's Toivo.
A reunion.
But he isn't the rotting, self-consuming memory from the doctor's office. He isn't sick. His face is shining and full of vibrant life. And on his chest, he is wearing a red rose.
The poetic symmetry of that image is just brilliant, especially when you contrast it with her earlier hallucination.
Let's unpack that connection.
Oh.
Because earlier, when she was in Dr. Peter's office trying to medicate her grief away, the hallucinated tuxedo man wore a black rose.
Yes, and as we discussed, the black rose symbolized an inescapable end. It was the formalization of grief, a statement that death is the only remaining reality.
Yeah.
But here, Toivo wears a red rose. The red rose is the universal symbol of continuing life, of vibrant love, and of eternity. It directly answers and overrides the despair of the black rose.
It's like rewriting the narrative.
Exactly. The clinical setting offered her a black rose of permanent mourning. This spiritual resolution offers her a red rose of enduring love.
Toivo reaches out his shining hand to her and says, "Come, darling." They hug, and Elisa notes that she felt her whole being brighten down to her very soul.
Such a beautiful moment.
Then there's another massive lightning flash, and the environment transforms completely. They are suddenly standing before God's throne with lightning flashing and a glowing emerald rainbow arched above it. They walk together toward heaven's pearl gates. They see a huge crowd of their sleeping loved ones waiting for them, and they hear a final cosmic voice say, "Come, good servants, into the brightness of your Lord."
It is an incredibly triumphant cosmic ending. And what makes it so powerful is how it ties the entire grueling journey together.
It recontextualizes everything she went through.
It really does, because it validates all the fragmented hopes she had along the way. Remember the vision of the white riders she had when she first touched the key in the elevator?
Yeah, with the neighbor lady.
Remember the fjord memory in the hospital where Toivo told her he saw life and love? This ending proves that those weren't just desperate coping mechanisms of a broken mind. They were glimpses of the truth waiting for her at the end of the tunnel.
And the fact that she found the key and the envelope in the most mundane, depressing place, a flickering cage elevator in a rotting apartment building, feels so significant. They were literal invitations to transcend her grief, hidden in the darkest parts of her everyday life.
The core thesis of the story is ultimately suggesting that you cannot bypass profound loss. You cannot just sit in a doctor's chair, take a tranquilizer, and skip to the end of the grieving process.
You can't just slap a cast on it like a broken arm.
Precisely. Overcoming that level of trauma requires walking directly through the absolute darkest, most terrifying parts of your own mind. You have to face the rotting monsters, you have to survive the infested apartments and the somatic fear in order to find the light on the other side. You have to descend into the park to ascend to the pearl gates.
What an incredible scope for a single narrative.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone from a grotesque five-eyed monster with a bone spear in a freezing black pond through the sterile failure of a doctor's office into a cockroach-infested apartment during a skull storm,
It's wild.
and finally fought through a pulsating forest of fear to reach a glowing emerald rainbow and a red rose of reunion. It is a massive, exhausting, beautiful journey.
It operates as a profound, albeit surreal, map of the human psyche attempting to survive the ultimate loss.
Well, thank you so much for coming along on this deep dive with us today. The material is heavy, but the mechanics of how the mind fights for its own survival are deeply moving. And we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on as you go about your day.
Because we all carry our own invisible landscapes.
Exactly. I want you to consider the idea that grief, or really any deep psychological trauma, is not a straight line of healing. It is not a medical chart. It is a literal, treacherous landscape that you have to map out and actively survive.
Right.
So think about this. If your own internal fears were to physically manifest in a dark, raining park tonight, if you had to face the pulsating manifestation of your own anxieties, what would your golden key or your blue flame be?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What is the specific anchor of love or memory that you would use to push through the terror to the other side? Because as we've seen today, sometimes the X-ray machine is broken, sometimes the muddy waters are all we have to navigate, and we just have to find the right key to unlock the door in the dark.
Keep questioning those invisible landscapes and never underestimate the mind's ability to fight back.
Thanks for joining us. Keep seeking out incredible stories and the hidden meanings behind them. We'll see you on the next deep dive.